Hi, I'm George Constance. I'm a process improvement specialist specializing in lean since 1987. And this is a deep dive for the series The Skinny on Lean. You can find it at theskinnyonlean.com. This deep dive is on strategy using a tool called Hoshinkanri. So let's go to the next slide. So the agenda that we're going to be looking at today is what is strategy, how to develop strategy, and then how to deploy strategy, two very different things. The PDSA of Hoshinkanri. PDSA refers to Plan, Do, Study, Adjust methodology. If you haven't seen the intro to Lean, I strongly encourage you to look at that first. And then we're going to put it all together into the whole stream of an organization. And then we're going to look at the benefits of Hoshinkanri over other methods. So let's take the next slide. So Hoshinkanri was developed by a professor named Yoji Akeo back in 1951, and was quickly adopted by Toyota because Toyota used that Plan, Do, Study, Adjust methodology for that lean process improvement, and this fit right in with that methodology. It's also something that was much simpler than everything else was being done. It was it created accountability, and it also enabled data collection in the process, and it had a lot of benefits. And we're going to go through all those. Let's go on to the next slide, start. So what is strategy? Strategy is pretty much a plan of action. And it's as simple as that. From the beginning of time, when groups of people got together, they'd make a plan so that they could function as one unit. As organizations, nations, armies got larger, strategy became a little bit more difficult to develop, and a lot of tools were used to do that. And the deployment of that strategy was also something that was lacking as organizations got very large. So let's go on a little bit further. Next slide. So now, with that quick definition of what strategy is, let's look at the history of strategy to help understand how Hoshinkanri fits in. It used to be things were autocratic, and the biggest ape in the forest, the richest man, the most powerful general, pretty much determined what was going to be done. We're going to do this. If it works, great. If it doesn't, well, we're in trouble. Then came along vision alignment, where everyone was provided the vision for the organization. This is what we're trying to achieve. Here are our goals, and we want all of you to create your own vision statements, your own mission statements, and we want you to pursue that. But things kind of went every which way because everyone had different interpretations, and what that vision wasn't deployed as well as it should be. Then comes along Hoshinkanri. It enabled that two-way strategy. It actually linked all parts of the organization in the development of the strategy as it was being cascaded. So it solved a lot of the problems that existed before and made Toyota a very successful company. Let's move on. Okay, strategy development goals. Okay, so in Hoshinkanri, what you want to do is develop the true north for the organization. The true north is actually a package. It's the sum of the vision. This is how we want our customers to perceive us. The mission, this is what we're going to do as an organization to achieve that vision. And objectives, the measurable goals that we believe will accomplish the mission to achieve the vision. So the vision flows down to mission, flows down to the objectives, the goals of the organization. And let's click one more time. All that done through a moral filter, which are values. You want to have electric cars, but you don't want to use slave labor in some foreign country to achieve the products that you need to create it. So you want to, that's going to judge how you develop your vision, mission, and objectives. Let's move on. So IKEA, here's an example from IKEA. Their vision was to create a better everyday life for the many people. Notice I don't mention any products in there. They're trying to create a better life for people. And obviously we're going to translate from another language, everyday life for the many people. How are they going to do that? Well, their mission was they're going to offer a wide range of well-designed, functional home furnishing products at prices so low that as many people as possible will be able to afford them. And their values were togetherness, renew and improve, and cost consciousness. So very critical to achieve the mission, which achieves the vision. It has to be cost conscious. They have to constantly improve the quality, and they're going to do it together. They understand the fact that they have to work as a team to achieve these goals. So this is how vision, mission, and values works at IKEA. Let's try the next slide. And here's another example. We the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. Very moving paragraph. This, within this statement here are vision, mission, and objectives. So what could be the vision for something like this? Let's click through. So the vision is to form a more perfect union. That was the vision, to form a more perfect union. Hard stop. How were they going to do that? Let's click through that. How were they going to achieve the vision? It was through their mission of establishing justice, ensuring domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings and liberty of ourselves and our posterity by ordaining and establishing this Constitution for the United States. So doing this will achieve this. That's the mission and vision. Let's click through one more time. What are the objectives? They listed the objectives, the actual articles of the Constitution, or the objectives. So really well crafted back in the late 1700s, example of vision, mission, and objectives. So let's move on. So now that we know what strategy is, we understand true north. It's a package of mission, a vision, mission, objectives, and values. How do you develop something like that? So let's go on. There are hundreds of tools. I actually have a book that was recommended by a business strategist in the UK who that has over 200 different ways of developing strategy. And I pulled one out here. VUCA is developed by the United States Army. Volatile, unpredictable, complex, and ambiguous world. And the goal for them was in the battlefield to make things less volatile, more predictable, reduce the complexity, and reduce the ambiguity. Understanding the goals here, all these tools can be applied. I've also pulled two out here. The balanced scorecard method, developed in 1992, is really good at developing strategy, not so good at deploying it. Hoshi Connery developed in 1952, excellent at deploying strategy, not as good as the scorecard at developing it. So for the rest of the course, we're going to take a look at strategy development through balanced scorecard married to Hoshi Connery. Let's go next. So the balanced scorecard approach is a little complicated, and that's where it fails in the deployment section, is everything the company is going to do is going to be looked at through a filter. You start with this filter. These categories might change based on the organization, but for the most part, you want to look at what the customer is going to make the customer happy, financial, internal, and learning that you have to do within that company. Click through one time. So a little bit easier to see here. So the KPI that are being developed, remember that you're trying to develop those operational goals. You're going to start with the vision and the vision and mission for the organization, and then work through to the objectives. So getting to the objective levels, you're going to look at these four quadrants right here. Let's skip through again. Okay, let's start over. Not start over, we're going to go back to. I jumped ahead. Okay. So the balanced scorecard, I'm going to be using the balanced scorecard approach. No.
And you can just do this and all that to go.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so we're going to look at the balanced scorecard approach right now. And one reason we're looking at this, again, is because it's good at developing strategy, getting down to those operational objectives. But not so good beyond that point, and you can see why it looks kind of complicated. And the way balanced scorecard works, and another reason I'm using this because most companies use it, is let me start over again, okay? You don't have to do anything, okay? Okay, so let's look at the balanced scorecard approach. And the reason I'm using the balanced scorecard approach is it's really good at developing a strategy, but also because most companies in the world today use some form of balanced scorecard approach. And what happens here is what you do is you define your vision and your mission, and then you filter it through these four quadrants: customer, financial, internal, and then internal learning that you have to do. So this is what the customer wants. These are our financial constraints and goals. this is what we have to do internally, and this is what we have to do as an organization to achieve all these things. It could be, buying things, education, whatever has to be done to achieve these goals. And you can actually go through a worksheet to show how these things are all connected. Once you're finished with all this, all of these blocks go into a scorecard under the same categories. So now you have all of your objectives, and then it's cascaded through the organization. But you can see, it gets a bit complicated. Things can get lost and go off the rail. It works really well in the C-suite. You get to this point in the C-suite, you're pretty much done. This is something you hand down. Here's where Hoshin can take over. So let's go to the next slide. There's a pop-up with the balance scorecards, and you can see that these are KPI, financials, revenue, operating expenses. For the internal, you want to look at length of stay for a patient, or maybe inventory. You want training levels of certifications that might be needed to get through all this. And also you want to understand what a customer satisfaction is. So once you've filtered everything through here, you've got a good list. Let's move on. There's another way of looking at things. The value diamond, I'm sure you're all familiar with. You're looking at customer satisfaction, finance, quality, and time. So this helps you understand what your customer wants. And once you understand what your customer wants, you get that balance, then you can throw it into the customer section of the balance scorecard. So this is balance scorecard outside the scope of this, but what I wanted to show what most companies use to develop that list of operational metrics. So let's move on. Okay, so the most common development process is something called catchball. There's nothing new about catchball. 1950 sitcoms, there was always a dad and a son throwing a ball back and forth talking about issues the son might be having. You're really going back and forth with, what about this, what about that, and how do I do this, how do I do that? Organizations are supposed to do the same thing, where the CEO talks to the COO, who talks to a director, who talks to a manager, who talks to the staff, and they elicit information back up. So you have this, the catchball is information going down, information going up, which influences information going down. That's called catchball. And the balanced scorecard approach doesn't have a tool for this, so it's not that great. Once you leave the C-suite, balanced scorecard starts to fall apart. This is where Hoshin takes place. Go ahead, hit it again. So what I normally see in a lot of organizations is very slow. The cascading of information tends to degrade every time it goes down to the next level. It's just like that grammar school exercise of the telephone line where the teacher whispers something in one ear and it's whispered all the way down until it gets to the end of the class and the message changes completely. I remember 4th grade, teacher said peanut butter to one student. By the time it got to the other end, it was Filipino butterfly. So there's a natural degrade in the telephone line with information going down. Information coming up, well, there's another issue right there as well. The information doesn't get back up. First of all, there's a lot of fear in every organization. I don't know if that's ever going to go away. We can reduce it. But Hoshin Kanri helps fix that problem. It gets around the fear. People are afraid to push back. People are afraid to reveal any weaknesses they might have. People may have prejudices that they were trying to promote, or in the worst case scenario, they're trying to harm someone else. So we have problems going down and up with catchball if you just rely on people talking to one another. You need a tool to help fix that and get around that fear situation. So let's go to the next slide. So now we're going to look at how do you deploy strategy using Hoshin Kanri. This is where Hoshin Kanri really shines. And to reinforce that, strategy development down to the work group level, also called the Gemba, is critical. Strategy development, we're going to rely on the C-suite to do that with the balanced scorecard. Getting it to the Gemba, not so great. You can see the bar right here starts to break apart to represent that. What was needed was a way to deploy that strategy. That's where Hoshin Kanri comes in. Hoshin Kanri is that vehicle that eliminates all the problems with strategy development and really facilitates that cascading. And also, it's a tool to help reinforce, not only to help develop that strategy. So strategy gets developed while it's being cascaded if you use a combination of balanced scorecard and Hoshin Kanri. So let's see how that's done in the next slides. Before we do though, the catchball method is still used. And I just want to reinforce that. With Hoshin Kanri, that catchball method has a tool to help eliminate all the problems of catch-ball and facilitate the flow of information in both directions. So let's go, next slide. So this is called the Hoshin-Conry matrix, or an X matrix. It's called an X matrix because of this X right here. It's easier to remember that. Hoshin-Conry is a Japanese term. So in the X matrix, we have a much simpler structured catch-ball tool. And it integrates both the development and the deployment. It aligns all activities in the organization. It creates accountability, and we're going to see all of this in the succeeding slides. It forces KPI development so that we have not only accountability for the individuals, but accountability through the metrics. And we end up with vertical and horizontal alignment being facilitated. And we're going to walk through this one step at a time. So let's go to the next slide. So the vertical alignment, this is cascading from the C-suite down. Let's go to the next slide. So the Hoshin-Conry process, as published back in 1951, has 7 steps. You want to establish that current state and a vision for the future. Secondly, you want to determine what the high-level multi-year goals are to achieve that future. Then you want to set the annual organizational objectives to achieve those goals. Then you want to actively cascade those goals and objectives down to the work group level. I include the term negotiating up because every time information is passed down and passed back up, the goal of catch-ball is to have a negotiation. Like the director tells the manager, you have to do this, A, B, and C. The manager may push back and say, well, B is impossible because, and then that's going to go back, flow back up and influence everything. And again, Hoshin-Conry makes that communication loop solid. Then you want to execute on your objectives. So how many times have you heard, didn't we do this last year? Whatever happened to that? This forces execution and accountability. You want to conduct regular reviews. Again, Hoshin-Conry can help maintain the reviews of everything that's been done. And also for performance audits, you can use the Hoshin-Conry for all of these things. So let's go to the next slide. So if you took the introductory course, which I strongly encourage you to do, standard work is really important. So what I do is I took the 7 steps of Hoshin-Conry and I added 2 more steps to make it a standard work. Using all these steps, you can create a Hoshin-Conry using that template, Hoshin-Conry template, which I have on the website as well. You go to Tools and Templates, you can download it for free. Using these 9 steps, now I add these 2, you can create a Hoshin-Conry matrix. So let's go through all the parts of the Hoshin-Conry matrix, the X matrix, as referenced by these steps. Let's go to the next slide. And this is just the zoom in so that you can see all the particulars of it. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, so this is what the Hoshin-Conry matrix look like. It's done in quadrants, and strategy is designed so that strategy cascades from the objective. So here we have vision and mission influencing or being used to create these strategic objectives, and I've organized them using the balanced scorecard approach of financial, customer, and so on. So here are the objectives that are developed in the C-suite. What we want to do is cascade them from the CEO all the way down to the director. That cascading occurs in this direction right here. Each alignment becomes more operational. So these are high-level objectives. Down here, you're actually doing the work. And I'm going to show you how this cascades. Let's go one more slide, one more click. The information here cascades back down. So the Hoshin-Conry is designed to cascade information in this direction, to deploy the strategy, and then collect information this way. So it mimics a Hoshin-Conry during its development phase. So strategy goes this way, metrics go that way. Let's go to the next slide. So establishing the matrix, again, vision and mission are determined, missions determined in the C-suite, and these objectives are determined. The next step that you do, that was the first step. Next, the strategic objectives are created. These are going to be your annual performance, become your annual performance objectives. They're established next. So that takes care of 2 and 3 of the standard work. And a quick note on lagging metrics. Lagging metrics, this is what we want to achieve. Everything we do here, as we cascade down, impact those lagging metrics. These become leading metrics that impact the lagging metrics. So let's go on. And this is how that cascading works. So let's say the CEO says, I want to reduce harm. This is one of my strategic initiatives. The CEO would sit down with an X matrix, a blank X matrix aside from this, and ask the VP, what can you do to reduce harm? And the VP says, okay, I can reduce infections in one-star patients, and I can reduce falls. Those are two things I can do. So here's the corresponding tick marks for those. So let's follow reduce harm to infections. The VP then goes to the director of nursing and says, okay, I need to reduce infections. What can you as a director do? And the director says, you know what, I can reduce CAUTIs and CLABSIs. That's where all the infections come from. If I can reduce those CAUTIs and CLABSIs, then we're good. So here's the corresponding axis. So you see now the director has two objectives, measurable objectives, that can be directly associated with what the CEO has on the CEO's directives, a list of objectives. So click through. Now for me, the further you get away from the CEO, the more actionable items occur. So for me, reducing CAUTIs, CLABSIs, and reducing falls, these are all projects that in my mind are A3s. An A3 is just a word for using PDSA to solve all your projects. So everything in my mind that is actionable is an A3. And I really encourage you, if you're a lean organization, to use the A3 format to follow that PDSA methodology to address all of your issues. So by the time we get to the director's level, or the manager's level sometimes, all of these should be actionable items. All of these should be A3s. So now we've cascaded from a high-level goal, reduce patient harm, to some very specific projects that we're going to do, very specific A3s. Let's go forward. And that looks like we okay. So then comes the problem. I had a lot of problems with this when I was working with a lot of groups. What if you want to go below the director level, go to manager level? Well, just like this tool, what are these things called?
ViewMasters.
ViewMaster tool, where you click it and it rotates. It's the same thing here. Once the director gets to the manager, this disappears, the VP switches here, the director switches here, and this becomes the manager's tool right there. So that's how you cascade down to the next level. You can do it down to the individual level too as well, below the manager level if you want. But most organizations stop at director. So let's go for it. Okay, so here is the next part of the standard work. What we're going to do is create metrics. So we have 3 A3s here. Well, if you're going to reduce CAUTIs, how are you going to measure it? Well, you're going to come over to here, and this tick mark is reporting this. Here's the report we're going to use. Here's where we're going to get our metrics to show how we're doing. We're going to execute this A3, and this is how we're going to measure it. This is what we're going to report to the boss. And the same thing with these. There's a corresponding method of measuring. These are the metrics that are created. It identifies what the metric is and where you're going to get it from for each one of these corresponding things. And this is, you can see I'm drawing the connection here. And this is the 5th step of the 9-step standard work. We're to develop the KPI for objectives and resulting projects. So let's go on to the next slide. Oh, sorry. And these are the leading metrics. Remember, the lagging metrics were patient harm was the lagging metric. The leading metric is here. These are the things we're going to do to affect that lagging metric. And finally, these can be translated. Just go back to the previous one. And finally, these can be translated into a dashboard to make it easy to read and share with the staff and with everyone else. So these pop up here. They go that way. Okay, let's go again. And finally, so accountability. So we went from reducing patient harm to reducing infections to reducing CAUTIs and CLABSIs. We know now how to measure them. We also know that, arrow's missing, that we can assign these objects to individual people. That creates the accountability. So we've cascaded the projects, the objectives down to actionable items. We know how to measure them, and we know who's going to do them. So we have that accountability, which is step 6 of the standard work. So let's move on. Oh, there we have the connection, okay. Okay, and again, I'm gonna reinforce the fact that all of these projects should be done through that plan to study adjust methodology. Every organization does that or should do that or attempts to do that. The A3 is a tool to help you do that. So everything here, in my mind, is in A3. Let's click through. And that is 7, execute on your annual objectives using lean tools. That is number 7 of the standard work. Let's move on. And metrics cascading clockwise. So every time you record in any of these quadrants, like when a VP has their information here, they also have metrics over here, and it cascades down that way. So the metrics cascade this way through the X matrix, through the dashboard. One of the values of Hoshin-Kanri is it's measuring the progress of the deployment at the same time as developing the strategy. Those leading and lagging metrics are connected now on a regular basis as often as you're testing it. So let's move again. And just want to show you what a dashboard would look like taken from that matrix. Remember, patient safety was that dark letter. This is the CEO's objective. The green here, falls and infections, that's for the VP. And the directors have falls, causes, and collapses. So we start off with the lagging metrics and move on down to the leading metrics. Let's go down. Okay, so again, CEO strategic objective is your lagging metric. And we go down to the VP strategic objective. This is a leading metric for that lagging, and then going down again. And this, the director's strategic objective is the leading metric, and that becomes the lagging metric here. And they can all be reported over time to see how your performance is going. Let's go again. And that is steps 8 and 9, the last 2 steps in the standard work for Hoshin-Kanri. Let's go to the next slide. So that's vertical alignment. That's how you cascade everything down to the work group level and how you develop your KPIs and how they flow back up through those dashboards. Now let's look at how do you align things horizontally. Next slide. So again, Hoshin-Kanri helps develop the initial quadrant of the X matrix, and then it cascades down. Let's say this is the VP level, then down to the director level. So how do you coordinate in this direction? Let's take the next slide. That is where we need to coordinate. That's where a lot of things fall apart in traditional methods. Go again. All right, so let's see the VP level. This VP has initiatives A, B, and C. VP2 in another department has initiatives A, D, and E. They both have initiative A. So it's up to these VPs to make sure they coordinate the directors, their direct reports. So for the VP, the directors 1 and 2 will have initiatives A. VP, the initiative A goes to their director. The VPs are responsible for making sure the directors are aligned. So each of these directors, all 3 of these directors, have to work together on initiative A. That initiative A is going to be in A3. That's how you coordinate horizontally. So this, by the way, there's something called an OBEA, another course that we'll be teaching. An OBEA is how you handle big initiatives outside of a work group where lots of departments are connected. This is what an OBEA would look like to help maintain those initiatives. Let's move on to the next slide. Okay, changes. Really, you make a change. Let's say something ridiculous happens, like there's this worldwide pandemic and everybody has to change their operations. Things can fall apart pretty quickly. Everything changes and it's just not easy. Hoshin-Kanri does make it easy though. Hoshin-Kanri is a great change tool. The way it's done is, let's say a change, even outside the grand scheme of things where there's a pandemic, if there's a change to be made, an opportunity at this level, that change cannot be made without a 3-tiered alignment. 3-tiered alignment means you need to get permission from your boss okays it, then your boss is gonna make changes here, you're gonna make the changes here, then you're gonna cascade them down. So no one can make a change to their X matrix unless they get this alignment, both one level up, one level down. That's how you create change. And it's a rapid change too, because remember, everything is connected. So if you make a change here, you have to make a change here and here. Very rapid. You can, in a matter of days, completely change the direction of an organization using a Hoshin-Kanri tool. And it maintains itself. It's a beautiful tool for things like that. So let's go to the next slide. Now, we're on to the PDSA of Hoshin-Kanri. Remember that Toyota adopted it because it followed the plan, do, study, adjust methodology that their whole organization was built around. PDSA to remove waste. And deploying that strategy, deploying that strategy was very difficult for them, so they adopted this Hoshin-Kanri methodology. So let's look at how Hoshin-Kanri relates to the PDSA cycle. Yes, next slide. Remember the plan section. The planning is we take our vision, mission, and objectives, and we cascade them all the way down to as low a level as we want to. And we create metrics to measure everything that we've cascaded, and we've assigned that to individuals, so we have accountability. That's part of the planning section right there. It's done in that counterclockwise, clockwise method. Next slide. The do section. You remember I mentioned a couple of times that when we get down to the lower level here, director level down, these are operational. These are your A3s. This is what you're doing. You're doing that plan, do, study, adjust within that section for individual projects. So let's go again. Next slide. Study. We have metrics that cascade through dashboards, these cascading dashboards. We now know how things are working because what's done here impacts the dashboard here, impacts the dashboard here, so it's instantaneous. Every month there's an upgrade, and we now know how things are working and where we have to focus or refocus or reinforce. Next. And the adjust section. Remember, this is a quick change tool. We've identified things we have to change, we do it. We do a 3-tiered alignment, make sure everyone's still in alignment. So we have PDSA, the grand PDSA for the organization that dictates these small PDSAs that we do on the work group level. Next slide. So let's put it all together. Next slide. So putting it all together, balanced scorecard, we develop a strategy and a vision, mission, all that for the company. It gets placed into an X matrix. This is where the X matrix is started, and it gets cascaded down throughout the organization. So we have development and deployment. Developed through balanced scorecard, deployment through Hoshin-Kanri, and everyone uses the PDSA methodology through their A3s to execute. We make sure things get pushed through using dashboards that come from the countermeasure section. The result are artifacts such as standard work and other things, but primarily standard work. So we go from a vision to very specific standard works for very specific processes, all connected and all easily changed. Everything's connected like the organs of a body. Next, let's see. Yeah, so this responsibility. So I've had a lot of managers talk to me about, well, who's responsible for maintaining all of this? The C-suite develops the balanced scorecard and starts the X matrix. The work groups have to participate with the X matrix. They execute on their objectives to create their artifacts. Here's where the responsibility lies. Let's go to the next slide. Documentation, everyone worries about the documentation. The C-suite's responsible for maintaining their X matrix and develop the balanced scorecard to start with. The work groups have to maintain their X matrix and their artifacts, generally standard works. So that's not too big of a deal. And remember, changes occur through 3-tiered alignment. So as long as everyone's maintaining their X matrix, everything's cool. Let's move forward. So, benefits of Hoshin-Kanri. I've identified 11 of them. I'm sure there are 100 more. This is the last section here. Well, you're going to communicate and align strategic objectives to the entire organization. Everyone's connected. We're all thinking like one body. We have clear understanding of the current state. It visually simplifies resource prioritization. We can really see where things are going right and wrong and where we have to put resources. Leaders gain valuable regular performance insights. As frequently as you're updating your data, your KPI, that's as frequently as the C-suite knows exactly what's happening throughout the organization. Widespread engagement and accountability. So everyone knows what they have to, the accountability occurs. It's not a bad thing, it's not a gotcha thing. It's the employees finally know how they fit into the organization and what they have to do and how they're being measured. So most employees want to do a good job. Things fail when you don't have that connection, that alignment. So there's also simplifying change and rapid response. Organizations rarely end up where they start. There's always going to be changes. There's so many external factors that affect an organization, so changes are going to occur. This allows changes to occur without throwing everything into chaos. It's an excellent onboarding and teaching tool. You can see where you fit into the organization and what you have to do. You've got a list. You're assigned to it. You know how it's being measured. It's a great teaching tool. Organizational-wide PDSA, so now the entire organization is using the most valuable tool in process improvement ever developed, that plan, do, study, adjust methodology. There's endless catchball. It's every time there's a change, it's always done through a catchball methodology. It can be applied at a project level. I just recently, I didn't know this myself, I actually applied it to a specific project recently that worked really well. And it's absolutely great for aligning an overwhelmed organization, because most people are overwhelmed. One company I worked for had 72,000 employees. This is how you reduce that overwhelming task of organizing an organization. So next slide. Okay, so that's it for Hoshin Kanri. It's the skinny on lean. I gave you the basics. I'm sure that you'll have questions. Please contact me. I'm more than happy to help answer those questions or participate in one of your projects. There are free templates online. Go to skinnyonlean.com where you can find free videos, templates, additional courses, some certifications, in-person courses. We offer that. I can come in, work with you on a project as a consultant, and the work that we do, I can create a course for in-person courses as well. So you get 2 for 1. The courses are free if I do the project for you. There's a lot more things that we could do. There's a blog there as well. Please communicate with us. If you like this, let us know. If something's missing or confusing, let us know. So that's it. That's Hoshin Kanri, our deep dive. Thank you. How did that go?
Good.